Hello, everybody. You are now listening to I Know Nothing. My name is Marcus, and I'm here with George. And today on the podcast, we are talking about single-use plastics. So, I Know Nothing podcast is about The I Know Nothing podcast is a progressive story about two normal guys trying to see beyond politics and money. We try to find the real facts behind the narrative by sharing our thoughts. George and I don't feel associated with climate advocates of our day, so we're documenting our journey to becoming more educated. So, hey George, how has your week been?
It's been good, thanks. I've just had such a weird evening. As I told you earlier, Marcus, I've just been around my new neighbour for, the last 2 hours. She's a very, very friendly lady. But it's such a weird story. When I met the landlord for the place I've just moved into, he showed me around and he was talking about how he had lived in this house for like 20 years. Maybe like 15, something around that sort of, like a long time. And he was pointing out this is the room where I used to read in, things like that. God. As a boy. Yeah. And he then sort of told me about the neighbours and how he used to play with their kids when he was a kid and things like that. And when I was sat there with this neighbour today, she was like, yeah, he bought the house 2 years ago, and then 6 months ago, or even less than that, and then he obviously came around and introduced himself, and that's how I know who he is. But otherwise, I've never seen him before in my life. I was like, that is quite creepy.
Oh my god, mate, get out of that house now. That's the start of a horror film.
I know.
That's the start of a horror film. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, before I go to bed, I'm going to put the like internal, what do you call it? The like chain across the door.
Have you seen that documentary where the guy's like, he owns a motel and he records basically people in the rooms?
Oh.
I don't want to scare you, but check the corners,
so weird.
Just check the
corners.
There
are actually sensors in some of the rooms. I think it's part of the security system, but now I'm kind of freaked out. My room doesn't have one though, so I also kind of don't care.
Yeah. Mate, that's really dodgy. That's a really odd thing to lie about. Why would you?
I know.
You're going to get the house anyway.
Well, that's the thing. The only thing I can think of is that maybe he wanted me to believe that he had known them for ages, and so they would, basically rat on us if we did anything untoward. Like, I've got basically, maybe he was trying to suggest he had eyes on either side, sort of thing. Or otherwise, I just don't know. Maybe he's just a compulsive liar. He was a really nice guy, but there was something quite like scam artist-y about him.
Yeah. I mean, your house is in London, and so it's not exactly like a hard place to sell or rent out.
Well, I think he'd been struggling to rent it out, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's very, very strange. Because he told her that he had actually ended up buying a property. So initially he was like, "Oh, we're gonna myself, my wife, my kids are gonna move in here," and then he was like, "Oh, we've actually ended up buying somewhere else. We're gonna rent this out." But I'm fairly sure he owns a number of properties, and
which he's all lived in for numerous years and played with the next door neighbour's kids for numerous years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also it's also the company that he apparently runs doesn't exist on Company's House.
Oh, mate, this is not okay.
But there is a it's I can't remember what the phrase is, but there is one that exists on Company's House, but it's owned, or at least it's its filings are from a much bigger holding company. So it's all really weird. Like this I don't get it.
What do you think the reason is? Like the overall picture? Because I'm telling you right now, this just screams drugs to me.
Why drugs?
I don't know. Maybe he's like some kind of kingpin. He needs to launder his money somehow. He makes up stories, tells you. So then if he ever gets busted, he'll be like,
cash. No, sorry, there's no cash involved. It's all me sending him money.
Quite a paper trail.
I see what you mean though. But like, as in investing in property to sink it. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
Creeped out. The neighbour was very nice though. She made me a cake.
Cool. Maybe she's the liar. You never know.
Well, I did wonder. Like, are they? I was almost like, are you having me on?
Yeah.
But she seemed very genuine. She talked me through all the different people that had lived there, and how she knew him. So she was very, very
fair.
Who knows?
That's really odd, mate.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit scared for you. Yeah.
Otherwise, my week was okay. Just moved house on, last Wednesday. Went okay. It was tiring day, long day, but got it all moved. I'm ill now, so if I have to cough, then
oh no, mate, you can't. Did you just mute the cough?
Yeah.
Don't mute the cough.
No.
The listeners want to hear you cough.
Yeah. Okay. I won't mute the cough next time, or the sniffs.
If you need a fart.
Wow.
If you need a cough,
okay.
cough. You know, this is authentic.
maybe too authentic. So how was your week?
Well, as we said on the last podcast, I went on holiday last week, and I went to Porto in Portugal.
Yeah, very nice.
For the week, and it was really nice, mate. The weather was perfect. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. Obviously, it wasn't too cold. It was actually, very sunny. No clouds in the sky, but it wasn't, 30, 40 degrees Celsius at all. So it was really nice. Did a bit of surfing, went a bit to the sites, etc., and just relaxed.
Awesome.
Well deserved, I think.
Yeah, very much so.
If I'd like to say so myself, anyway.
No, that's lovely. What were there any particular sites that you saw that were cool? Is there anything to go and see if one is in Porto?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot now, pal. There was a church that you could climb all the way to the top of the tower and see the whole of Porto.
That's pretty cool.
The name escapes me, though. You see, I did not do any of the planning. It was my girlfriend's family who planned the whole trip. So I was just taking a back seat and really relaxing, basically.
Yeah, lovely.
Went to, the restaurants that we went to and ate the food, drank the port and the wine. I have to say,
nice.
There was, if you go to the Taylor's Museum / Vineyard area, Taylor's is a manufacturer of port, and you get to see all the history of how, because I think they're the oldest port manufacturer in Porto, and you get to see all the history there, and have a bit of tasting, taste the port. And there was, what do you call it? What's that bird that, there was lots of peacocks in the gardens, which was,
weird.
in my opinion, the most upper class thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, they're quite, I don't know what the word is for just the way they walk about. And
Yeah.
Very la-di-da.
Well, no, not the animal itself. Just
just having them.
I'm not judging the animal. Yeah, having peacocks in your garden.
I realise that, but I mean what they symbolise.
Yes, very true. But overall, the holiday was amazing, mate. I have to say.
That's cool. That's good. That's good. I had quite an exciting phone call at work today. It's just I like things like I've always liked aeroplanes and things like that, and then a nerdy sense of the word. And one of the phone calls we had was with a client who makes a component for fighter jets, and he was just like, he said the jet that he was talking about that the component comes from, and then I'd already done some research on the different varieties. So he gave me the variant of this specific jet, and I was like, oh, so that's the STOL VTOL variant. and just throwing in technical terms like that, and was just every time he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right."
Yeah.
Just I think it sounded because I'd looked them up before. I wasn't like scrolling through Google being like, "What can I say? What can I say?" And I think he just came off sounding like I just knew what I was saying. So it was just quite a fun phone call, just being like,
That was probably the first phone call he's had where the person on the receiving end knows his stuff. It's like, oh, wow.
Well,
okay,
I don't think he knew. I think he was just like,
oh, no.
yeah, probably, yeah. That's the impression I got.
That's really
like, he was like, yeah, that sounds right. But I don't know. Maybe he did know because he knew the variant, and the variant is specific to how it can take off and land. So who knows?
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool,
that was a fun phone call at work today.
I actually think that you enjoy this job a lot more than you make out.
I like it, but at times I really find it quite boring and monotonous. But it's when I get an interesting project, something that I find like I really like looking up the background of the things I write about. So I think maybe in episode 1 I told you about a car or something like that I had to write about, and just such cool projects, and that kind of thing I find interesting. But then sometimes when I'm writing like the standard architect research and development thing, it can get quite boring.
Well, swings and roundabouts, really, eh?
Yeah,
it's like everything.
Very true. So, did you do the environmental challenge that we set a few weeks ago?
Well, of course, because I was on holiday, it was quite hard to make a really big impact and change a habit. But what I would say was, before I left, I did unplug everything. So
nice.
I guess I kind of did succeed in that.
I mean, if anything, that's a whole week of not doing it.
If anything. I mean, I won't mention the fact that I took a flight to Portugal.
Ooh,
which
you didn't follow in Greta Thunberg's feet then? Or footsteps?
Oh, mate, don't get me started on that. That frustrates me a lot, actually.
It's so funny. My mum sent me a video the other day on Facebook of one of her talks, her TED talk, and I was like, "Have you heard of this girl before?" And she was like, "No." And I was just like, "Yeah, she's currently sailing the Atlantic to avoid taking a plane, and also here's a picture of her on the front of GQ, and also like multiple other magazines."
Oh, yeah, she's super. I mean, I don't really know. Props to her for being super famous and sharing the message, I guess, and being a spokesperson. But as you know, I design and help build these yachts, and I studied this, and the likes of these racing yachts, the amount of material that they use, right, you can probably build 2 yachts from the material that they just waste.
Right, okay.
Because, of course, they have to be super efficient. Everything has to be consolidated in terms of how they make the yacht to the point of millimeters of precision.
Yeah.
And, because you're playing with strength and stresses. And so, yeah, I think it's quite hilarious when they're like, yeah, we're going to sail across the world to reduce emissions. But, of course, they choose a racing yacht that is actually quite bad for the environment, especially as it's plastic or carbon fiber, at least.
I guess you could maybe argue, though, that making aeroplanes is just as bad. And so the use of either an aeroplane or therefore they're even in their production, and so where the savings can be made is their actual use.
Yeah. I mean, of course, out of the 2 evils, yeah, sailing is obviously less, quite a while less. But again, it goes back to, I don't like this whole putting on a pedestal some actions that actually do have implications on the environment. And
so you feel like it's misleading?
Yeah, a little bit. In terms
but then
of
that boat existed before she got on it.
Yeah, exactly. So fair play to her.
But I suppose the cow existed before we ate the bacon.
Well, cows. I mean, cows and bacon aren't the same, mate. But yes. That really threw me off, that statement.
That is such a good point.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm ill.
Yeah. That was a brain fart and a half.
Oh, cows and wow.
The good thing is, our title is I Know Nothing.
Yeah, and apparently I literally know nothing.
Yeah.
That's what 4 years in London does to you.
Yeah?
It's like, where does bacon come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vegetables now.
Yeah. You know, I like to milk my chickens and pick my cow's eggs. Oh, that's terrible. I'm so embarrassed.
Well, we can't cut it out now. That's there for life. You know that's on the internet forever.
Yeah, that's quite embarrassing, really, isn't it? That is going to be on the internet forever.
You're gonna have to come up with a really good fact later on in the podcast to,
the awful thing is I heard some really interesting facts earlier, and then I've now forgotten them. I have no idea what. I listened to this podcast called No Such Thing as a Fish, and as I'm cycling along, I'm like, oh, that is such a good fact. That's amazing. That's so interesting. And then 5 minutes later, it's gone. I just don't know it at all anymore, and it's so annoying. Why don't I retain these things? I could be such a wealth of useless knowledge if I did.
Yeah. That's the same with everyone. That has to be the same with everyone. That's why everyone has to almost dial in on something in particular to be a wealth of knowledge in. You can't know everything. You can't know that cows and bacon aren't the same thing when you are not a farmer, George.
I mean, I do know that.
Well, prove it, and you didn't.
I grew up on a farm.
Oh God! Don't say that.
It wasn't a working farm.
What are you doing?
It wasn't a working farm, but it used to be a dairy farm before we moved there. So it's quite embarrassing on many levels that I just got that wrong.
So, how was your challenge? Was it a success?
Well, I've just moved house, and so that's been a struggle in terms of keeping up recycling. However, I do now have a food waste bin, a recycling bin, and that's it. I don't have any other bins.
Okay.
Other than obviously a waste bin. So I think I'm going up in the world in terms of I actually have 2 food waste bins, so that's good. And so I think we're going up.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Mate, that's a huge improvement.
We need a recycling bin inside the house though, because we've got one outside, but I need one inside to make sure the others use it.
Yeah. Definitely do that, mate. I don't know how you would do that. Either you'll chip in or just buy a bin for 20 quid or something. 20 quid? I don't know how much bins cost.
Oh man, at work today they got a bin arrived, £120.
Jesus Christ, what?
Yeah, I know. But who needs
what does it do?
£120 bin? It honestly, there was just a little thing. You pressed it and then it opened up, and then you pushed it back down to shut it. That was it.
Mate, I've seen those bins for 5 quid.
Yeah, no, I know. There's
£5.
nothing special about it. It was nice and non-fingerprint steel, anti-fingerprint steel, and I imagine antibacterial, and there was an internal plastic bit that held, so you could pull that out to take the bin out, so you didn't have to take the whole bin out.
Mate, I've seen those bins.
I mean, it's not worth the money that's charged for it.
However, a bin that cleans itself, as in the lid, would be amazing.
Well, I mean, you can get antibacterial materials, but do you mean actually wipes itself clean? Sort of clean.
Yeah.
Oh, but
I had McDonald's. Like
a windscreen wiper.
I had McDonald's on the way home, because of course I got in at 9 o'clock, and what other thing could I eat?
Sure.
And the bin was well. Now I feel really guilty. I didn't think about that.
I had McDonald's the other day. I'm not going to judge you.
And so, putting my trash away, the bin was absolutely disgusting, and I came up with the idea, which is probably invented already, of a bin that cleans itself.
But how does it clean itself?
I don't know.
Oh, so
Mate,
you just want
I
it
come
to
up with
magically become
ideas.
clean.
I come up with ideas. I don't follow through with them.
Right.
That's
Because
not my...
that's like being like, I want a table that self-cleans.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic idea.
Mate,
I
that's a
pitch
great
it to you.
idea. You should pitch it to...
But it's... Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's like the start of the idea, but the problem is the clever bit would be how it cleans itself.
Yeah, no, that's just micro information that you don't need to worry about right now.
Semantics.
Yeah, that's semantics.
Yeah, sure.
But
So
I'm proud of
basically
you,
just
mate.
Thanks. I actually, in my chemistry classes, my professor had made and sold to the university, cleverly, self-cleaning windows.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for that, George.
Well, it was kind of cool. So, do you know what hydrophobic means?
I think you have told me this before in terms of what hydrophobic means.
Do you know what hydrophilic means?
No.
Okay, so hydrophobic
Remind us
means...
both. Remind us what
Okay,
both
yeah.
means.
So, for anyone that doesn't know, hydrophobic means, like, repels water, and hydrophilic means attracts water, essentially, like, in basic terms. And he had very cleverly, so lots of windows are hydrophobic, so they repel water so it beads off. But what this means is that dust collects on it and doesn't get washed off. So what he had made is a hydrophilic, so attracts water window. And so this means that the water, basically when it rains, it moves down in like a sheet so that it essentially washes the window itself. And so the window never needs washing.
That's awesome. And you know,
Yeah.
when he came up with the idea, did he focus on the semantics before? Probably not.
I mean, probably. It's a material
Agree to
chemist.
disagree, George. Agree to disagree.
Indeed. But yeah.
So, well, that was nice. I think we're moving on steadily. Maybe we should move on to the main topic, which is obviously single-use plastics.
Yeah, that's had a lot of news around it recently, especially plastic straws and how lots of countries are banning them and replacing them with paper, and I suppose also companies in particular in places where countries aren't doing it in specific. And what do you know about single-use plastics?
Yeah, I think because of the news, I know a little bit. I haven't formed an opinion on anything yet, but it's not like one of those podcasts that we've done where I've said I really don't know anything. So maybe we should change the podcast name to I Know a Little Bit.
Or something.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah.
I know a little bit. But I do know that the likes of these plastic straws, because they don't disintegrate in the water, specifically plastic straws, it's causing damage to our oceans, because of course we discussed before, plastic takes a long time to what's the word I'm looking for? Degrade. Yeah. And that's the reason why
Decompose.
That's the reason why the likes of companies like Weatherspoons, McDonald's, etc. have gone to paper straws. But I did read the other day that McDonald's, the new paper straws are not recyclable, which was really interesting. And so that sparked that whole thought process of, well, which is better, a non-recyclable product or one that can be recycled and just isn't because of our laziness, etc.
Right, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So, but can plastic straws be recycled?
Yeah.
I don't know this. They can.
So if we just focus on McDonald's, the straws, because that's really the only ones that I do know, their plastic straws could be recycled. It's just people weren't putting it in recycling bins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so the paper straws cannot be, but of course they decompose or degrade at a quicker rate, right?
Yeah, but then I guess if the wood is from the wood to make the paper is from a sustainable source, then while it's not recycled, but then I see it's still an issue. But I suppose it's better than plastic ending up in
The oceans.
the ocean. Yeah, or
Well,
wherever.
that's our initial thoughts, I guess. That's it'd be interesting to find out. Another thing on the back of that is that a lot of these single-use plastics and recycled plastics are usually shipped off to Asian countries where they're paid, as we discussed in the previous podcast, and nothing is done with them. So they're not actually recycled.
Yeah.
So you're making material that can be, but nothing is done.
I think in that event, then, from what I know now, it definitely seems better that paper straws are being used, even if they're not recyclable. I suppose the defining factor of whether it's sustainable is whether the paper comes from a sustainable source, which
For sure.
I suppose it'd be quite weird as a company, I feel, to be pretending to be sustainable, so getting rid of plastic but then using unsustainable paper sources. However, maybe we'll find out.
Yeah, I wonder if a lot of companies do that, actually. You see it all the time with this term greenwashing, which is effectively companies pretending to be sustainable and trying to act sustainable, but they're really not. And in the back office, they're still going about their business, still causing a detriment to the environment.
Absolutely, yeah.
But another thing, right, is that not just focusing on straws in particular, but the amount of single-use plastic is a joke. If you really try and focus on it, the amount of packaging in supermarkets is all single-use plastics. Your meat is in single-use plastics.
Yeah.
I saw obviously on the baggage carousel at the airport.
Yeah.
I saw 2 suitcases wrapped in plastic for safety, or so that they could prove if anyone got into their bag or whatever the fuck they were trying to do.
Yeah.
And I was just thought, this is such a waste.
That's such a good point.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
No one wants your stinky underwear. Yeah?
Yeah. That's such a good point. I'd never looked at it in that way before, really. You know, someone I met, so when I went round to, it's such an off-topic point, but of thinking of things in a different way. And maybe this is common knowledge, but I'd never thought about it this way. And that is, apparently this guy that I met today believes that, or thinks that the Daleks in Doctor Who represent the Nazis.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's either that or the robot-looking fellas.
What?
The ones that shoot like lasers from their hands. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah, I have no idea what you
They're
mean
like
by that,
stormtroopers. I don't know what they're called.
the metal things, the silver thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. Yeah, I'd never thought about it like that. But then maybe I'm showing my, whatever the word is, ignorance.
Mm.
Or maybe I never paid enough attention to Doctor Who, didn't think about it, deeply enough.
I love Doctor Who. No, I
Oh,
don't.
really?
No, I don't. I don't know why I just said that.
Oh.
Don't know why I just lied. I don't really care about it.
Yeah, I used to watch it when I was little, but
Yeah.
I grew out of it. Yeah. After that episode of Are You My Mummy scared me to... Oh,
I was just about to mention that episode. That
Really?
episode is honestly, I think every child in the UK watched that episode and was freaked the hell out.
Haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go back and watch it just to see how much it still sends a shiver down my spine.
Yeah.
I just remember not sleeping for a few days after watching it. So bad.
Outrageous.
Yeah. It was that, and when I was 10, watched Halloween, which, I don't know if you ever watched it, but it's about this, basically just a murderer who goes around killing people. It's messed up. Horrible.
Okay,
Not what you need
I
to be
mean,
watching as a 10-year-old.
you're taking it down this route, and I don't know why you've done this, but just a little tangent. I don't know if you remember that sleepover we had at Gil's house.
Was I there?
I'm pretty confident you were. We had a
Okay.
sleepover. How old were we? I don't know. 14, 15,
Sure.
maybe younger. Hopefully younger. And we watched those like scary movies, and I think the movie was called The Cottage.
Right.
And actually, it's supposed to be a little bit of a comedy. And the likes of Gil and our other friends, I don't know whether I should mention them on the podcast, but the likes of Gil and our other friends,
Yeah.
we're all laughing, but I was freaked out, mate. I was not in a good place. We're in the middle of, God knows where. He was, just did not like it one bit.
Oh.
You don't remember?
No.
Were you there?
Probably not.
Probably not. Maybe not.
Sad times, hey.
Sorry, mate.
That's
I thought you
okay.
were.
It's cool. I came other times.
Yeah,
Sure I went.
you did.
Sure I went once when you went there, hey?
Probably.
How'd you like that?
Yes.
Right, I think this is a good time for us to go away, find out a little bit more, and try and educate ourselves and the listeners. What do you think?
Yes. Just a final question.
Okay. Sure.
Do you think you use a lot of single-use plastics?
Yes.
Yeah.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I've used some today but not thrown them away. So, and also today which I really probably should have been doing before, but today I like Waitrose for this reason. In Sainsbury's, if you buy like a croissant or anything like that, you have to put it on the scales. And it's kind of annoying because if you buy a croissant and a pan of chocolat and put them in the same bag, you have to you can't put them down at the same time.
Annoying. Yeah.
You can you have to either hold it awkwardly where you're letting one on the scales and holding the other, or you just put in what I do now because of the same price. Is I just put in two croissants and I'm like, this is your fault in terms of your inventory being messed up. I'm still paying the right price. But in Waitrose, they don't go on the scales, and so you don't have to put it on the scale. And so I just today just picked it up, didn't use a bag at all, and walked out eating my croissant. And I felt, well, that's a step.
Yeah, that is one step, maybe
Yeah.
half a step, but that's a step.
It's a nudge of the
Yeah.
toes.
What? Yeah. Do you use a lot of plastic bags when you go shopping?
I haven't taken a plastic bag from a shop for a long time.
Oh,
I
okay.
either reuse plastic bags or just carry it awkwardly or take my own rucksack.
Mate, I keep making the same mistakes where I go to the shop and I forget the bags, and I've got this whole stockpile of plastic bags in a cupboard. Yeah, I'm a hoarder. I'm a hoarder of plastic bags.
That 5p thing really worked on me.
Yeah.
Not that I don't mind paying it. It's literally just it made me think about taking them, and now
Changing your habit.
I literally don't do it. And
Yeah.
cool thing, the Co-op has biodegradable bags. Don't know how biodegradable, but yeah, recyclable, biodegradable, whatever they are.
Wicked cool.
Maybe compostable actually. I think that's what they might be.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Mate,
those
that
ones
is cool.
I do take occasionally. Actually, I must admit, once
Yeah.
once every month, I'll take one of those accidentally.
Awesome, mate.
Cool. Well, let's go away and try and find something out and see if we can say
Come
I know
back with a wealth
a
of
little
knowledge.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what that was. We pause? Yeah, we'll pause. And we're back. So, George, let's start with what you found and explain to the listeners what a single-use plastic is.
So yeah, I thought it would be important to start with actually what a single-use plastic is, because although maybe we alluded to it in our discussion, we didn't specifically explain it. So broadly speaking, single-use is a term that can refer to any plastic, either designed to be used once by the consumer before they're thrown away, or likely to be used. Obviously, it can also be recycled. Single use includes both thrown away or recycled after their first use. And an example of these, or examples of these, include disposable cutlery, plastic straws, like we discussed, plastic carrier bags that are thin, so they're not the... These are basically gone. I don't know if they've been banned or not in the UK, but they're pretty much gone from the shops. They only really have the thick ones now, but the thin ones are essentially just so thin that you can really only use them once because they just rip. And then also like drink stirrers, crisp packets. So that's basically what a single-use plastic is. Where did you want to start with what you found out?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest questions that I had was the life cycle of a single-use plastic bag. And ask the question, how many times do you have to reuse a plastic bag for it to be, neutral to the climate and potentially have a positive life cycle, I guess. And I found this Danish study, which includes quite an extensive amount of factors, including how much volume the bag can carry, the production of the packaging material, because of course these bags have to be packaged as well, the production of the carrier bag material itself, treatment of the material, transport, and then finally the collection and / transport to the end of life of the carrier bag. And this Danish study basically compared plastic bags with other materials such as paper, cotton, etc., and the amount of times that is needed for us to use the bag is as follows. So I won't bore you with the scientific... I'll do it. Polypropylene bags, which are mostly found in your supermarkets, the green reusable bags, have to be used 37 times for it to be net gain, zero net gain in terms of sustainability. So 37 times. And if you compare that with paper bags, that should be used 43 times. And cotton bags finally should be used 7,100 times for it to have a zero net gain in terms of the sustainability of that material / bag.
What do you mean by sustainability in terms of what is achieved when I use a polypropylene bag 37 times?
So in terms of, if you consider the energy that is required to make these bags, the treatment of these bags, the transport, that of course is a detriment to the environment. And so how often do you need to use it for it to be sustainable? And I guess I'm using sustainable in loosely, but I mean you have negated all those other factors that have been detrimental in the production of it, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I haven't quite got it. I don't think in terms of what is achieved when, because obviously if I don't use a bag, I mean, but I suppose that's irrelevant because obviously not using a bag's better than using a bag.
Well, yeah. So if you think about it, not using a bag is zero.
Yeah.
If you have made a plastic bag, let's say that's -10 on a scale, because you have done all this stuff to the environment, produced oil to make the bag and make the bag itself. So you're at -10. And so every time you use the bag, because you're using it for the function that it's been made for, you're climbing that scale 1. So then it's -9, -8, etc. until you get to 0, such that actually the detriment to the environment, because you have used it so often, it negates it effectively. such that
Okay.
you know, it has been sustainable in terms of the amount that you've used it. So, for example, with my clothing, I wear my clothing a lot, and so hopefully one day, the detriment to the environment of making my clothing is negated because I wear my t-shirt a lot. I'm not
Okay.
just throwing it away and then, oh, great, that's it. Am I
Okay.
making
Sure.
sense?
Sort of. I haven't quite got it, but I don't know. It's just the like, I don't know what's the 37 coming from. What's that? And maybe it's what you just said in terms of it. You sort of essentially clawing back to the zero, but what does that 37, 43, or 7,100? Where what are you actually? Because obviously that sort of suggests that you could be carbon positive if you carried on in a way. Or at least the way I understood your explanation.
And I think you potentially can be carbon positive if you keep using the same bag. Of course, or oil is regenerated. You have then stopped using any more bags. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so the fact that you are now reusing this bag for its intended use, potentially you can be carbon positive or whatever you want to say in the long term.
I don't think you can though, because the use of a plastic bag can never be carbon positive in relation to, like, carbon positive assumes that, or negative, carbon negative. Are we saying it the right way round?
To be honest, I don't even know if I was supposed to be saying carbon anything, but yes, carry on.
So, well, I'm not sure it's actually related, because if you've got a plastic bag, that's been like carbon CO2's probably been released into the atmosphere to make it. We've burnt fossil fuels or whatever,
Yeah.
and that's never going back. And using that bag isn't absorbing any carbon.
Yeah, okay. So then maybe the carbon, if you separate that, I'm talking in terms of the amount that you have to use it, such that you are now not a negative to the sustainability of our environment. Yeah.
Okay.
You're not taking resources, you're not treating it, you're not using energy to make that product. You've made that product effectively reusable.
You're still using energy to make it.
Yeah, of course. Just like you have to use energy to make anything. If we all
Yeah,
died, then
that's
that's
true.
great.
Yeah, that's
But
yeah,
at the end
good
of the day,
point.
we still have to use stuff,
Yeah.
and for the material and the product that, i.e., plastic bags, you have to use it effectively 37 times before, such that that life cycle is now a net zero life cycle. Yeah,
Okay.
because
I still don't understand how it can be net zero. I think the numbers are useful for comparing. Maybe I must be missing the point, but the numbers are useful comparing, because I had no idea how cotton bags.
well, I
I
think
just assumed they were so much worse, but than plastic bags. But clearly they're not. But you can't be. I don't see how a plastic bag can ever be net zero carbon.
well, what's interesting in the study is that it does talk about that. If you just let me finish, George.
Sorry.
No, it's actually really important because I need to understand it fully myself.
Yeah.
But what they do suggest at the end is the fact that with every plastic bag is used, the amount of times you have to use the next plastic bag increases. Yeah, because of course you're always going to be negative, 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 just like you are saying.
Right. Okay. Yeah. With
Does
you.
that make sense?
Yeah.
If I'm not making sense, then we just scrap that. But as long as as long as people understand the fact that plastic bags have to be used 37 times before it becomes not a detriment, unless you're really not getting that.
Yeah. Okay. I think I get it. So basically, I do get it in that sense. So the suggestion of the study is that we should use the bags 3743 and 7,100 times before we get rid of them. I get that completely. Yeah, and
Right.
That makes perfect sense. But
maybe my explanation in terms of saying it was net zero or even saying any of that kind of crap did not help.
Maybe, I don't know.
But it's important that you put me on blast like that, even though it makes me feel like an idiot. Because if I don't understand, because if I don't understand it, then fine. As long as I guess the people listening understand that, actually forget everything that I just said. Just remember the fact that 37. At least we can fully agree that you need to use it 37 times for it to be not a detriment to our environment, due to the fact that production of the bag, production of the packaging, treatment, etc., all is a detriment to the environment, and so you have to use it a lot more times for it to be fairly okay, if that makes sense. I won't use numbers, just for the product to be okay.
Okay, yeah, with you. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm with you now.
But yes, it is important to note that with every bag that is used, that number increases. It's just a great comparison in terms of saying plastic bags are 37 times, paper bags are 43 times, and cotton bags are 7,100 times. Because of the reason why it's important is because that will probably lead us to a few more facts that we have kind of just found, in the sense that plastic and paper are often compared, and actually paper isn't really the holy grail to the issues that we are facing.
Yeah, with you. I think one of the things that, in a similar vein of how much should you use things or what should you use, I was quite interested to know a bit more about milk.
And before you talk about milk, George, and because I'm really excited to hear about milk.
Okay.
I will say that I will link the report that I found in the description, wherever you will find the description, so you can read it, because I did just skim through it. Of course, I don't have the time to fully read it, but it was pretty extensive, and so read it yourself if you have the time. But yes, talk about milk.
So, milk. Basically, I mean, if we ignore for the minute that cow milk is, as far as I know, bad for the environment. I don't know how you feel about that, Marcus. Do you disagree?
No, I do agree with that, actually. I thought you were going to talk about the fact that cow milk is bad for us. And then that opens a huge amount of doors. But yeah, okay, fine. Dairy production is pretty bad, yeah.
Okay, so if we skirt that issue for the moment and assume that we're not quite ready to give up cow milk yet, I'm not quite. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't mind trying some alternatives, but let's assume for the second we're not. Then the next step is that you must remember. I don't know if you ever did. Do you get milk bottles that delivered in glass when you were younger?
Yeah. And the orange juice.
And orange juice. All right.
Yeah, you
all
never
right,
got
fancy. That? No.
Oh, wow.
Wow, all right. Mr.
Baller.
Living it up with his hand-delivered orange juice. Wow. That must have been nice.
Yeah. I mean, I was quite young. I don't really remember it. But yeah, I'll go with that.
I'll go with that. Appreciate it.
No, yeah. Mate, I just got orange juice coming from all orifices.
Whoa. Where did the orifices come from this?
Yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, milk bottles. So, in 1975, 94% of milk in the UK was delivered in glass bottles. And now it's around 2.6%, which is crazy to think.
That is crazy.
It has been a dying industry for a long time. But just that sort of how quickly basically, if we're honest, the local milk trade has died, because glass bottles were really about local milk deliveries, and I think they have to be as well. Whereas plastic milk, like, now that's crazy. And it's probably why all the farmers complain that they don't get paid enough for their milk. I think some of them actually lose money on the milk they sell,
Really?
which is awful. Yeah, like I'd rather pay a bit more, which is maybe a point. I'm not sure my flatmates want to pay more, but like Will drinks so much milk, it's unbelievable. Some days he'll just go through 4 pints, just like whoop, gone, just downing milk. It's insane. So anyway, I wanted to know whether glass bottles were better or worse than plastic. And it seems like the long and short of it is that glass is better as long as it's reused than plastic. So you can reuse a glass bottle up to 25 times before it has to be recycled. But even then, after it's been used 25 times, you can recycle it. The only sort of detail in that is that it's much heavier. So while it's more sustainable in terms of its longer lifetime, because basically recyclable plastics, as far as I know in the UK, can't be reused in milk or like food containers because of these sort of bacteria concerns.
Yeah.
So milk bottles, while they can be used much more before they're recycled, they're much heavier to transport. So I think it's something like a third of the transport weight of milk when milk bottles are included or when glass bottles are included even, is made up of glass, whereas it's like 1 or 2% when it's plastic. So it adds a massive weight change to transport, and so there is an issue there. However, apparently this is sort of outweighed by the production and heat and energy requirements to make the plastic or milk in the first place. Plastic or glass in the first place. So, yeah, those two compared, I thought was quite interesting, and glasses basically comes out on top. And you and I both thought. So, what were your thoughts on cardboard? What were your sort of assumptions before we looked it up?
So, interesting. The milk in the Netherlands comes in cardboard. The usual Tetra Pak kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I've assumed that you can recycle it. So, overall, better than the plastic that you get in the UK. But I did see, now not with milk cartons, but with coffee cups, that you can't recycle actually coffee cups because of that lining that they have, which I assume would be the same in the cardboard that I get in my milk.
Yeah.
So therefore, it wouldn't be able to. You would not be able to recycle it.
Yeah, and well, you knew I hadn't really thought about it too much, but yeah, I don't know about whether you can recycle it or not. I think you can, but it's much harder because you've got to basically separate the cardboard and that lining. And that's, I assume that maybe can only happen in certain places, if it can happen at all. So, and on top of this, cardboard's actually quite energy intensive to make.
Again, it goes back to the paper. Paper
exactly.
Cardboard, yeah.
Yeah, and so while my immediate assumption, because it seems like all nut milk comes in cardboard, and so it must be therefore more sustainable. I think it might just be that it's a bit of a perception.
Yeah, it probably is, because you think, the vegans are drinking almond milk and, human milk. I don't know what milk they're drinking.
Human milk. Wow.
But you just assume that they are more sustainable, and they probably are on the whole. But you just assume that the packaging of that milk is better than the plastic.
Yeah. Right. So I've just to interject, I've just had a quick scroll rapidly as we've been talking of that Danish report on the number of times you have to use a plastic bag.
I've moved on, George. I've moved on.
No. This is important.
I was hurt.
I'm sorry.
No.
This is important.
I'm joking.
So, one, is, in the comparison, is to classic low-density polyethylene bags used once afterwards as a waste bag. So that's the control, not necessarily the control, but that's the standardized like one use.
Yeah.
Because apparently they're actually the lowest environmental impact.
Yeah.
These classic plastic bags.
Yeah.
Because while they can't be used very much, they're actually crazily quite low impact, which I didn't know at all. So even recycled plastic, and I suppose that's because it just takes into a lot more factors than like how long does this bag last, equaling
How much
sustainability.
Energy?
Yeah, like you said. And so even a recycled plastic bag, it has to be reused once to have the same climate change impact as a classic plastic bag, where versus a normal plastic bag doesn't actually have to be reused.
Yeah,
Just
that makes sense.
Mind-blowing.
That makes sense.
An organic cotton has to be reused 20,000 times. So what your figure was for conventional cotton, 7,100 times. Although, having said this, I believe the cotton figures may be there's some information on the internet suggesting that the study was questionable in terms of cotton's impact. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there in terms of the 37 times is equal to 37 times the use of a classic plastic bag in order to have the same effect as that plastic bag.
You see, when I read it, that's not the takeaway that I got. That's interesting. Maybe if the listener would read it, they would also have a different take on what they're saying.
Well, I suppose that's why these
You're probably
studies,
right, though. 100%.
Well, no, because that's why these studies are so interesting but also dangerous, because you and I have come away from it with two very different takeaways.
Yeah.
And on top of that, what I can see from the narrative is that actually potentially the cotton quote figures aren't actually that accurate, and it could actually potentially be better than some things. But I don't know that for sure. That's just me sort of qualifying and saying potentially there's an issue with those.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting.
We have to remember that we're not scientists. Yeah.
Oh,
So sorry to anyone who is a scientist. Oh, you are.
Well, I was once upon a time.
You are. No, I can't say that. I can say that though. I'm not a scientist, so I'm sorry to any scientist, i.e., you, George. And
I mean, I'm not a climate scientist.
You're not a climate scientist.
Actually, I say that I did study climate physics.
And you are doing a podcast about climate now. So,
but so are you.
Yeah, but I'm not a scientist. And so what I will say is that the whole point of this podcast isn't just to spout facts at you, because really we don't know anything, hence the name. But really it's just to get you to think a little bit, while we also try and navigate our thoughts as well. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
And I think what I will say is, adding to that whole plastic and paper debate, is a good summary in terms of the paper straws would be that it's true that paper straws aren't as harmful as plastic straws. However, this doesn't mean that they're harmful at all. In fact, paper straws can still have many negative environmental effects, especially if they're improperly disposed of. And just like we said earlier, where McDonald's can't recycle their paper straws. And the reason why they're not, the Holy Grail, like I said, is because of the fact that manufacturing paper products take a heavy toll on the production of greenhouse gases. And comparing just the production cycle of paper products and plastic products, the greenhouse gases are a lot higher for paper products because of all the factors. And so we need to be looking at other ways of being sustainable when it comes to these single-use items. Another thought as well with these plastic straws, paper straws, is that when I was just doing a little bit of research, the thought came to my head was, if the plastic products are polluting our seas and generally killing the wildlife in our seas, is it not, is destroying habitats, i.e. trees, better than that? Because to me, both are equally bad. The fact that you have to destroy a tree, cut down a tree, I won't use such, emotive language. The fact that you have to cut down a tree which probably houses mice, birds of prey, birds in general, etc., worms, all of that. Is that better than polluting our seas and killing wildlife? Well, actually, both are equally as bad, in my opinion. And so, like I just said earlier, we need to be looking at other sustainable ways. And what I did see when I was on holiday in Porto was in a particular restaurant, they used straws that were made out of pasta. And so you could actually eat the straw after consuming your drink, which I thought was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I think what you said is such an interesting and valuable point. But I suppose because when you were saying it, I was trying to think what is the solution to if we need straw. There are some people obviously that do need straws. Some disabled people need them. There's an argument that they're arguing that plastic straws should be kept in places so that they can use them, and I think it's difficult to say because maybe it's unfair. But I do think that there's maybe some people carry a metal straw with them anyway just to be more sustainable. And is it that unfair that maybe they have to already carry enough things with them depending on what condition they have, that it's not fair to be like, here's a load of other things that you need to carry with you to just live a normal life. But at the same time, I don't know, I think that's a difficult one.
I mean, as in terms of, I understand your point, but in terms of percentage of the amount of people who are unfortunate enough to be disabled, it's, I don't know, again, I'm hazarding a guess, but let's say 10%, but even 10% is still...
Yeah, it's probably more like 0.1, isn't it?
Right. And so asking for the sake of the environment, because we all are, we all should be a team, whether you're right, left, centre, or disabled, not disabled. We should all be working as a team to be more sustainable and more thoughtful when it comes to the environment.
Yeah.
And so asking, hey, use a metal straw, I don't think should be classed as rude. If anything, it should be, hey, you're on my team, work with us, because you're not fully disabled or whatever, and enjoy your metal straw life. Brandish it around.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, they might be fully disabled. Who knows?
And then, what type of quality of life are we talking about, George?
Yeah, but then again,
we're
taking away.
That's from a comedy sketch, by the way. Yeah, that's not my joke. I'm just repeating a joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which makes it totally okay.
Which makes it totally okay.
Yeah. So the other thing I was thinking about in terms of, so we shouldn't be using plastic straws because it's bad for the sea. We shouldn't be using paper straws because it's bad for wildlife. And I definitely think you're right that it probably is destroying habitats. And I'm sure a quick Google would show up all sorts of animals that are dying because of our paper usage. So then the pasta straw seems like a great idea, but then I suppose the wheat has to be grown to make the plastic straws, which in turn is destroying habitats for that. So that it's all about a compromise, isn't it? It's all about trying to do the best we can and reducing. So like most of us don't need to drink from a straw. Sometimes maybe there's a hygiene argument. Sometimes there's a reason because you can't drink without a straw, but we don't need to have straws. It's like it's a luxury that actually like I don't really. It doesn't really bother me. I can drink without a straw.
Yeah, that hygiene argument. Oh, sorry, George.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, and so maybe the real solution is to not use straws, And if you have to, use the one that you think is the least impact sustainable.
Which is probably a metal straw. But that hygiene argument is outrageous. Yeah, you're an animal. We all come from whatever we come from, but you're an animal. Yeah,
Right.
You don't see my dog going around saying, "I'm not drinking out of that dog's bowl. It's dirty." You know.
I feel like that's slightly different.
No, it's not different. The reason why we are becoming weaker as a species is because we are drinking from straws. There, I said it. That's full stop. That's it.
Okay. So Marcus's solution is that we all just start licking the floor.
I remember one of my friends on a rugby tour. He was actually dared, kind of forced, manipulated into drinking all of his beer from dog bowls in every pub, bar that we went to. He survived.
Fair. I mean, that's probably not the worst thing he did that trip, but, you know.
It definitely wasn't actually as well.
Where was it?
In Topsham, actually.
Okay.
When I say a tour, we went down the road to Topsham.
Madness.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, unless you have any further points, we should summarise. No? Okay, so I think at the end of the day, we've definitely come to the conclusion, although I never feel like we really questioned it, that single-use plastics are bad. I think we've done enough. We've spoken enough about this kind of thing on our recycling episode and other episodes that we've come to the conclusion that single-use plastic, it's not sustainable and it's not good for the environment, and there's no real question about that. I think that maybe there's a misconception that recycled plastics are okay. Like, it's fine to go ham on plastic as long as you recycle it, but actually, if you can reduce it to the point where you're not using as much plastic, then that's even better. And it's probably better to... I wonder, it'd be interesting to know at what point it's better to... Maybe we'll post this up on Instagram and Twitter. What point is it better to recycle versus not use and just dump, if that makes sense? So is it better to recycle like 50% of your plastic, or is it better to not use 20% less plastic but then dump a bit more plastic? I wonder where the line is. Be interesting to know.
No, it's a very interesting study. Yeah, I understand what you're trying to
Convey.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll try and find out. However,
initially, what do you think? I think the latter.
I've got no idea, but yeah, I reckon it's way worse to... I reckon recycling plastic is still quite energy intensive, so cutting out like 20% of your plastic usage is probably better than recycling 30%, let's say. But yeah, anyway, I think on that note, we should move on to the good and bad of the week. Yeah.
So here at I Know Nothing, we like sharing some news that is positive, but also negative about the environment. We have to balance it because otherwise it can get pretty depressing. And we think it's a major reason why people don't want to do anything in terms of be more sustainable, etc. I know that I sometimes have the existential crisis of what the hell are we all doing? And so maybe you are too. So here is some good news. Start us off, George.
So the good... India's tiger population has increased by more than 30% in the last 4 years, which is quite exciting because I feel like tigers are always dying.
Yeah.
They're always going. Yeah. So yeah, India and 12 other countries vowed to double their tiger populations by 2020, and they've already achieved it, which is so cool.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty good piece of news. It just goes to show what government, ourselves, and... being aware can really do in terms of achieving these type of goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the bad, sadly, we've got to look at the bad too. Brazil have been using 27% more pesticides than last year, which has been an attempt to increase production of food, and it's meant that thousands of insects have died, so ecosystems are being destroyed. You can turn your nose up at this, but, you know, pesticides kill bees, and bees are a huge player in terms of pollination, production of plants, and therefore photosynthesis, reduction of CO2 in the atmosphere, production of oxygen in the atmosphere, and therefore more sustainable, better for the environment.
Are you starting to get a picture, folks? It's all interconnected. This is why it's such a big, complex problem. Simple solutions are not the answer.
And Marcus, what about the company in focus?
Yeah, so again, we need to remind that we're not sponsored by this company or any of the companies that are in the company of focus. We just like showing off good, innovative ideas that help the planet. We hope, anyway. And so the company in focus for this week is Arboria. And the website is arboria.io. And their aim as a company, which I think was done a lot of research with Imperial College London and London Business School. Sorry, George. And their aim as a company is to produce food ingredients. But there is a twist, George.
Oh boy.
These ingredients are produced via microplants such as algae and phytoplankton. And if you're going to ask me what phytoplankton is, I have no clue. Or algae for that matter. But what I do know is that both of these microplants need a huge amount of CO2 to grow. And so therefore, they absorb a lot of the CO2 in our atmosphere. These microplants produce ingredients that offer quality proteins, vitamins, antioxidants, and minerals, etc. So by absorbing a huge amount of CO2 from our atmosphere, we're also able to provide quality, sustainable food and food ingredients. And you can see some of their products that are almost like solar panels on buildings, just festering the algae and microplants, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, so that's the company in focus for this week.
That's very cool. Just on that note, phytoplankton, little Greek lesson here. Phyto means plant, and plankton means made to wander or drift. So basically it means drifting plant.
George,
and
George, just get out of
float
here.
around the sea, photosynthesize.
Get out of here with this knowledge. Just leave. What are you trying to do? Make this some kind of knowledge-based podcast? No, this podcast is for idiots by idiots.
Yeah, we want people to come away from this feeling stupider than they started.
I like what one of my colleagues said. And they said,
"Oh boy,
it's better than boredom." So I hope it is better than boredom. And I appreciate that.
What a compliment.
I appreciate it. It's just better than boredom. And so actually I've embraced that.
I suppose, in fairness, often podcasts are better than as in that's why I listen to them, because it's like I never listen to them when I could be doing something else. I only really listen to them when I'm on the tube or cycling or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just better than boredom.
It's just better than boredom. Great. And let's finalize with the challenge, George. And I think the good and necessary challenge from a single-use plastic point of view is to try and not use any single-use plastic, and see how hard it is to do that. I guess I could say, if you do use it, make note of it and say the reasons why you could not use it.
So just to start us off on this one, I reckon we need to try and reduce it or something, or be really transparent about, because there's definitely, I think, going to be some things that we basically can't avoid buying, or we'll be doing it for the next week and pretending that we're being sustainable, but really like we can't actually afford to go and buy pasta from this like niche little organic store for the next 10 years, and so can't actually do that.
Okay.
And so just be doing it for the challenge.
And so I don't want to do it just for the challenge. I want to do it just to enhance our habits and actually, change us. So
Okay.
then we change the challenge to be where you can try not to use single-use plastics. And
Yeah.
it would be good to see that decision. And I don't know how we could do that. Maybe posting a photo on Instagram saying, I could have bought this pasta, but actually I bought this pasta because it's in a paper bag or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Good shout. I like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Better?
Cool.
Better.
Yeah. So I think that nicely takes us to the close. We've got the challenge for the next week. If you want to try it with us, see where you can go with not using single-use plastics, see how far you can take it. If you want to get in touch with us and let us know how you did, then you can find us at I Know Diddly on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Instagram's the best for Marcus. He's pretty active on there. Twitter's the best for me.
And actually, yeah, I have nothing to add to that. So good. I just had a massive brain fart, so I think it should be a bye from me, George. See you later.
Oh, we're done, are we?
Yeah, Oh, no, we're not. Are we?
Yeah.
Basically,
I'm just messing with you. I'm literally just messing with
you. Bastard. And I guess what I will say, so I don't look totally irrelevant, is that we really appreciate all the, all the interaction that we've been getting on our podcast via social media. We know how many listens that we are getting, and it keeps us motivated, seeing that people like our content. It's not the be all and end all if we only get 4 listens on this podcast, and we won't cry about it. We just want to make an impact and help our society in some way or another. We don't have the answers, but it is nice. Obviously, it's nice getting all the likes, etc. And so, thank you.
Well said. Cool. I'll talk to you later, Marcus.
Love you, mate.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.